Day 1, 14 stone, 13 pounds. Day 21, 12 stones, 13 3/4 pounds. 26 pounds gone in 3 weeks. But that number tells you almost nothing about what actually happened. The allergies that vanished, the ketones that maxed out my meter, the moment on day 3 when hunger just stopped. Here's what 21 days without food actually did to my body. Daily tracking, real data, full honesty. Days 1 to 3, the fuel tank switch. Day 1 felt easier than expected. 5.5 hours sleep, energy was steady, mood good. The anticipation was harder than the fast itself. Once you're rolling, it's straightforward. Day 2, hunger nudges came and went, normal. Your body's asking, are we eating soon? Not screaming, emergency, just a question. Day 3, something shifted. Hunger eased instead of amplifying. Now, every previous fast, day 3, broke me in some format. Brain fog, fatigue, persistent hunger. Not this time. 18 months of regular fasting and trained my body. Metabolic flexibility compounds. Your body's like a car with 2 fuel tanks, glucose and fat. Most people spend their entire lives running on glucose only, never switching lanes. Fasting forces the switch. First 48 hours, you're running on fumes, while the body figures out how to unlock the second tank. Day 3, the engine stops spluttering. You're floating. Dr. Andy Galpin's research on metabolic flexibility explains this. The more you fast regularly, the faster your body adapts. What used to take 5 days now happens in 3. Your cells learn to shift fuel sources without panic. Day 4, weight drop 10 pounds, all water. Stress from moving house the month before had inflated my baseline by 3 to 5 pounds. When you fast, cortisol releases, water dumps. First week, weight loss is theatre. Glycogen empties, water follows. Inflammation drops. It looks dramatic. It feels incredible. But it's preparation, not transformation. Real fat loss comes later. Day 4 to 10, finding rhythm, testing limits. Day 6, the cat test. My neighbour's cat sat on my lap for 20 minutes. 50 years I've been allergic to cats. Couldn't go near them without sneezing, itching, asthma flaring. Stopped my citrazine in February 2024, 16 months earlier. After fasting and non-UPF eating, fixed my inflammation. 20 minutes with a long-haired cat, smothered in fur, 0 reaction. No sneezing, no itching, no inhaler needed. I'd been 18 months allergy-free at this point. This felt like confirmation. Dr. Frederica Admati's work on inflammation explains this. Chronic inflammation, what she calls inflammaging, drives most of our health problems. Fasting drops that inflammation hard. Allergies are inflammation. Fix the root cause. The symptoms vanish. Day 8, physically drained, energy dropped to a 2 out of 10. Even a gentle walk felt like a mini marathon. Back was grumbling, mood solid, but emotionally very delicate. This was also the day of the family barbecue. Kebabs, burgers, sausages, salad, cakes, the biggest temptation of the entire fast. The old pattern, I had grabbed a plate automatically. New pattern, I kept my head down, stayed focused. Want versus need framework. My body didn't need food. My body wanted social comfort. Day 9, absolutely exhausted. 4.5 hours sleep, lying there, unsure if I was actually asleep. Energy levels lousy. But here's what was interesting. Emotionally steady. Mood sat at 7 out of 10, even though I was knackered. Hunger manageable, no temptations. Sleep disruption is common. Day 7 to 10 of extended fast, your body's shifting hormones. Adrenaline and cortisol adjust. Not a problem, just adaptation. Normally resolves by week 2. Day 10. The wall broke. Energy was back up. Mental clarity was sharp. Now this is where most people quit unnecessarily. They hit the 10-day dip and think, this isn't working. Wrong, it's adaptation. If you can, push through. Your energy rebounds. Day 11, glucose was 54, ketones were 6, GKI, that's the glucose ketone index, 0.5. That's therapeutic ketosis, the level used in cancer treatment protocols. I wasn't sick, I was optimizing. GKI below 1 is rare. It means your body's running primarily on fat and ketones. Cellular autophagy is active. This is where the real housekeeping happens. Damaged proteins, recycled mitochondria, repaired. Inflammation, cleared. Dr. Bill Harris has invented the omega-3 index test and studies metabolic markers. His research shows GKI is the gold standard for measuring metabolic state during fasting. Ketones alone don't tell the full story. You need both glucose and ketones to understand how efficiently your body's burning fat. Day 12, glucose rose slightly to 70, ketones climbed to 6.9, GKI held at 0.5 to 0.6 over the day. Normal metabolic flexibility, the body's recalibrating constantly. Day 15, the scale showed half a pound loss only, but the tape measure told the real story. Down an inch, hips down an inch, thigh down half an inch, my neck was 1/4 of an inch down, my skin was slack all over. Collagen lag is normal, autophagy continuing. The scale lies short term, water retention from exertion, cortisol from poor sleep, inflammation masking fat loss. The mirror doesn't lie. Measurements trump weight. Day 17, ketones exceeded 8. Meter was maxed out. My GKI dropped to 0.3, the deepest autophagy state I'd ever recorded. Most people apparently never reach this. Professor Janet Lord's research shows this is where anti-aging processes turn on, inflammation drops, damaged cells get cleared, your body's becomes a cellular recycling machine, not starvation, renovation at the cellular level. But here's what nobody warns you about. Day 18, Timothy grass test. I sat in a field of hay fever grass for over an hour. Timothy grass, it's been my absolute nemesis for decades. 18 months prior, would have needed Ventolin, Becaside, Citrazine, the full pharmacy. Had zero reaction, no itching, no rashes, no breathing issues. It was like a complete reversal. At this point, 5 stone lost since Boxing Day 2023. Last time I was this weight, I was 22 years old, 30 years ago. Day 19, I broke under 13 stone for the first time in 3 decades. Despite 4 hours of broken sleep and sluggish energy, my weight was continuing to drop. But sleep was now becoming a problem. 5 consecutive nights of disrupted sleep, day 16 onwards. Mental clarity, which had been sharp as a blade through day 14, was starting to dip. Not dramatically, but it was duller. Fog was creeping in around the edges. Alan Aragon and Professor Sarah Beddy's research shows sleep deprivation causes 200 to 300 extra calories per day in increased appetite when you're eating normally. During a fast, it manifests differently. Mental fog, mood wobbles, recovery impairment. Day 21, I stopped. Not because I couldn't keep going, because the data was clear. The benefits had plateaued after day 14. Sleep disruption was affecting work. Mental sharpness was compromised. 26.7 pounds were lost. My chest was down 1 3/4 inches. My waist was down 2.5 inches. Thighs were down 1 inch each. And my GKI ranged from 2.1 on day 1 to 0.3 on day 17. Allergies, tested and passed with cat and grass, no reactions. Professor Lord's research confirms extended fasting has a sweet spot, 7 to 14 days for most benefits. Beyond that, the risk climbs, muscle loss if you're not careful, electrolyte imbalancement, and diminishing returns on autophagy. 10 to 14 days is optimal for most people. 21 days is the maximum that I'd ever recommend to anyone. 42, no, not necessary. In my opinion, it's not worth the risk. Here's what nobody prepared me for. The moment I started eating again, part 3 next week, the refeed reality, what actually happens when you break a 21-day fast. The weight that came back, the gout crystals that vanished, the gut recovery that took 10 days. The free 14-day rhythm reset guide in the description. You don't need 21 days of fasting to get benefits. This is just my personal experience with extended fasting, tracked daily and informed by research done by experts. It's not medical advice. Extended fasts beyond 72 hours should only be attempted under medical supervision, especially if you're on medication. Please speak to your GP first.